Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2016 One Nation of Gamers Circuit Feature Tournament number 3. My name is TJ, and I am joined once again by That's Admirable. Admirable, how you doing today? It's been a while, man.
I'm doing fantastic. Always happy to be casting these events. And this one in particular, got a lot of strong players in this one, and can't wait to see what they've brought.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. We have, of course, the feature tournaments. It's a $6,000 prize pool tournament. It's going to take place over the course of the next 3 days. Today we'll broadcast Group A. Tomorrow, on Saturday, we'll broadcast Group B. And then, of course, on Sunday, the top 2 players from each group will meet in a single elimination finals stage where they will compete, of course, for that $6,000 prize pool and that coveted spot at the One Nation Gamers 2016 Circuit Finals, which will happen at PAX Prime at the end of August. So we've already had quite a few players qualify, 4 now, I believe, or 2. There's points as well for the first 2 features. And we're looking forward to that one. But today we have Group A, which is 3 players that took top 16 at DreamHack Austin. You know, another premier U.S. tournament, U.S. Hearthstone tournament. We have Justsaiyan, who took top 16, and then Chalky and Terrence, who took rank 1 and 2 respectively, all in the same group. What do you think of this group, Admirable?
Well, obviously, these guys have pretty much have understood the metagame early on. I mean, with Old Gods coming out, a lot of big changes came in. And as these tournaments continue to go, we're going to see strategies sort of solidify as that continues to happen. I think the big talk is the strength of Shaman, but kind of what cards in Shaman ended up being super strong. Flame Wreath Faceless, very strong card, but Thing from Below kind of being one of the big talks that I know 6-0 favors that one over Flame Wreath Faceless and a lot of his Shaman decks. And Thing from Below has also opened them up to playing more of a mid-range style coupled with Thunderbluff Valiant. So these 3 guys, to see how they're adapting to this one in particular, because if you're invited to an 8-person tournament like this one, the metagame is so much different than it is in a wide open field where you kind of just need generally strong decks. You can kind of metagame to each person's style there. So if it ends up fitting that bill, that's something you can do. But all 3 of them I know can get a little bit creative. I know Chalky tends to favor just playing the more powerful decks. Terrence kind of looked that same way at DreamHack, and Justsaiyan pretty much leaning towards the control side of things in most of the time I've seen him. So I think this group is kind of all over the place as far as the decks are concerned.
Yeah, and of course, with DreamHack Austin being last year's standing and the One Nation Gamer Circuit being Conquest, that makes a big difference too. We saw all these players even have a varying amount of success at the preliminaries, with Justsaiyan making it pretty far, but Terrence, Chalky, and Phonetap not really having a huge splash. So going to be cool to see. Of course, before we jump into the first match, we want to give an opportunity to thank, of course, the people that make all of this possible, the 2016 circuit. One of the big ones, of course, Geico Gaming being the title sponsor for the event. And have been a big sponsor for esports in the last year. So I guarantee you, if you haven't already, check to see if you can save money on any of your insurance, rental insurance, car insurance, for Geico, because I guarantee you can probably save some money. So, of course, you can head over to geico.onog.gg at any time during the broadcast today. You can get a quote. You can also enter in to win a CyberPower PC, another one of those sponsors. You can win a free Gamer Extreme 1000 PC. So make sure you're doing that. Of course, the Video Game Voters Network, just encouraging young gamers to get out there and vote in the 2016 election. They do giveaways and contests all the time on their website, so you can check them out at videogamevoters.com. And of course, we recently added Razer, so I'm really excited to have Razer on board as a sponsor as well. So big thanks to all this for making this possible. But it's time to start talking about the first match. Phonetap taking on Justsaiyan. Give me the breakdown of these guys' decks, Admirable.
Yeah, well, like I said, Justsaiyan definitely more of on the control side of things. So when I look at his lineup and I see Freeze, Warlock, Warrior, Shaman, a lot of times you can look at this lineup and think there's going to be some pretty aggressive strategies in here. But with Justsaiyan, this is very likely to be Freeze Mage, Reno Lock, some sort of mid-range variation of Shaman. And then I'm guessing Tempo Warrior is probably looking a little bit too appealing, though we did just see Fibonacci in May grind his way to rank 1 with a heavy Control Warrior build. Lots of top-end legendaries. And I haven't had too much success with that one myself, but I can certainly see some of the matchups where it's good. Where Phonetap, I know Phonetap tends to really just bring decks that he's comfortable with a lot of the times. And Rogue, I know, is something that he's played quite a bit in the past, so not a big surprise to see him bringing this one. And right here in Justsaiyan's opening hand, Blood to Ichor, Battle Rage, Ragnaros. Like I said, Temple Warrior, I think it's just a little bit too good right now. Say you were a little bit short on time and couldn't get all the practice in that you wanted. Tempo Warrior is looking super strong. And even if you have practiced a bunch, this could have been your best winning deck.
Yeah, it's like a sort of an automatic choice, but this is going to be a little bit of an interesting twist. It's going to be Patron Warrior, which is a deck that I've seen increasing in popularity over the past couple weeks. I know Zalay, who used to be and might still be a practice partner of Justsaiyan, played that in a team format that I casted the other weekend. They actually ended up winning, him and Amnesiac. So it's an interesting choice. It feels a lot like Tempo Warrior, except you have to sacrifice some of the more tempo-oriented cards in order to make room for like Inner Rage and maybe that second Whirlwind that you cut to make the Grim Patrons more beneficial.
Yeah, something that's really interesting to me about Grim Patron is that early on in the metagame, this was like the Warrior deck. It's the one that so many people were playing. And then as that continued to develop, people started moving towards sort of the tempo-oriented styles. Then we kind of rotated into control styles. Mm-hmm. And now Grim Patron's kind of sorted back into the metagame. And I wonder if this is because we've kind of seen Reno Warlock fall a little bit by the wayside. We've been seeing Zoo kind of dominate that Warlock spot as far as tournament contenders are concerned. And I know that Patron's going to fare pretty darn well versus that deck. You know, you throw in a couple extra Whirlwinds. You have a very, very heavy inevitability engine with Grim Patron in that deck. That could be part of the reason you're seeing this return.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good point. The Patron Warrior sort of lives and dies by what type of Warlock is common in the format. If it's a more control style, it gets wrecked. And if it's Zoo, then it's one of the best counters to that deck. So kind of funny to see that type of interaction there.
Yeah, I'm already damaged here, so just going to use this Acolyte and Fiery War Axe to clean this up. And this is one of the ways that you can stay ahead of Rogue is if you can just keep their board under control, get some amount of pressure rolling, and keep them on the back foot. That's a really good way to end up staying ahead and winning the game. Now, the one time that backfires is when the Rogue has Auctioneer, Preparation, and a bunch of shenanigans to go with it. But this hand looking a little bit slim from Phonetap. He's got some tools, but his hand is pretty darn heavy. I mean, Cold Bloods aren't serving any purpose right now. He has no effective way to activate this SI7 agent. Azure Drake as the lone play, this is going to be a big opening for Justsaiyan to try to swing something on this board. Now, his hand, he's kind of in the same position. He's got a lot of utility things to do. But with this board, it feels to me like this is a very heavy potential for Grim Patron, Coin, and Whirlwind on this. But plenty of other plays available to him. I mean, Bloodhoof Brave's fine. Kor'kron Elite could trade with the Azure Drake. The big deal here is that Justsaiyan has so many options to him that they all look appealing.
Yeah, and very true. And at the moment, it's looking like you said, the hand's just looking a little bit too clunky for Phonetap. He's sort of on that plan where he's doing his own thing, but he doesn't have much to interrupt Justsaiyan's thing. And second Eviscerate is going to allow him to fight for the board a little bit, but he doesn't have like that backstab or that Shadow Strike, which really helps him deal with the Bloodhoof Brave, which at that 6 health mark is pretty tough to deal with. You have to use multitude of spells. He does have the option to Justsaiyan Coin Conceal, but he's sort of, just giving like that initiative over to Justsaiyan if that's the case.
The strength of that Justsaiyan Coin Conceal is that he's not really giving up too much on this board. Mm-hmm. Justsaiyan played this a lot slower than I think some players would have. And this is kind of just right up his alley as being control player, wants to take his time and find bigger and better turns. If he makes a turn that's not as strong as it could have been, it's because he thinks he can get an even better one by doing this. And so Phonetap just going to take advantage of that Justsaiyan Coin Conceal, and there's no answer in Justsaiyan's deck for this right now.
Yeah, I think Justsaiyan was probably thinking, maybe if I get like 4 pages on the board, there's no way the Rogue can win. Because they don't have Blade Flare anymore, Fan of Knives doesn't deal with it. They have to have like an ideal hand to deal with it. But the thing is, do you really have time? If the Rogue has a decent hand, they're probably not going to let you have time. You're not going to be guaranteed to draw into that Inner Rage that you need, or maybe that second Whirlwind that you need. So maybe you're right. Maybe he did play too slow. We'll definitely have to see. But there's a lot of cheap spells in the hand of Phonetap right now. We'll see how much he feels like he can just go off.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the way the board's landing up right now, this board from Justsaiyan is very strong. It's going to force a lot of action from Phonetap. So part of his game plan also may just be longevity, kind of force a lot of answers from Phonetap to deal with these Bloodhoof Braves, which really aren't applying too much pressure, just the fact that they're taunts. And then outside of that, just be able to kill all of his threats and sustain through the rest of the damage. That's not an unreasonable game plan either. But with the way that Phonetap's hand constructed, it looks to me like he's just going to run over this board and really have not much problem with this.
Yeah, he's taking his time at the moment. he with all these cheap spells, he might find a situation where he runs out, but he still has his full 7 mana left. And the rope's starting to tick, so he's got to go a little bit. Sometimes when you're playing Miracle Rogue, you just have to go. Start playing cards and let those instincts, those Hearthstone instincts, take over as you move through your turns. And now if he picks up a Conceal, he might not have time to fit that into his thought process and have enough mana to play it at the end of the day.
Wow, really surprised. I mean, it looks like he was trying to go for the Van Cleef there, and ended up.
Ooh.
Wow, floats 3 mana here, so this is pretty brutal.
Yikes!
You know, this is part of the thing with Miracle Rogue is back in the day, players who initially started playing this deck, if they weren't used to really going through those motions very quickly, like you just mentioned, these kinds of turns happened. And so when I see something like this happen with Phonetap, at this level of event, it may just be getting to him a little bit, just kind of thinking, I need to play this really well, let me plan out my turn for a few seconds. But like you mentioned, your instincts need to take over. It's kind of like playing the old Patron Warrior. You know, you only had a certain amount of time to fit all your animations in. You had to get going, and you had to get going quickly.
Yeah, you got to be thinking ahead. You know, it's one thing if you draw Auctioneer off the top, and then you have to think through your plays. It's another thing when you have a concealed Auctioneer on the board and all these cheap spells in your hand. You should be coming up with a game plan for the next turn as your opponent's playing. At least with the current board state, just have a basis for your thought. He didn't even start playing his spells until 20 seconds of that turn. So now he's got to work from behind. He's got to fit all of these clunky cards into his game plan. He does have Leroy, but now he's down to a single Cold Blood. He didn't make use of the first one very well. It drew him a card, and he got the damage in, but he didn't get to combo that with Van Cleef to spread out his threats, so now he's in trouble.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to take the board pretty darn easily, and has some pretty even strong responses to what's going on. But Justsaiyan, I mean, he's on the brink of outright killing Phonetap. And it's really not going to even take that much. This is a great Ragnaros turn. Now, he's going to run into 2 saps from Phonetap, so if this Ragnaros isn't on point, he might not be able to pick this one up. I'm a little surprised he's not going for the Patrons here. Mm-hmm. And that could just be because Phonetap's drawn so many cards. But there's, once again, he's just had so many different options this game. It's hard to really tell what's going to be the best one in a nutshell. You know, these are plays you could argue for days about. Which one's going to end up being best? And with the Ragnaros being down, this is sort of like an inevitability engine. It's just right up his style, is to play a more controlling style where you want to force answers from your opponent uncomfortably so, and then take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. And still being very greedy with those patrons. I don't even want to call it greed. I think he just thinks that playing, a one powerful minion every turn is what's going to get him through this game, and maybe trying to go for one big swing turn with patrons. Still looks like he's searching for that inner rage, but he now has no armor smith, so he can't make a big armor turn. And Phonetap's just going to go ahead and he's not going to kill it. He's just going to use the backstab to develop another 1/1 and get that Van Cleef to be slightly bigger.
Yeah, pretty surprised by that. Given that Justsaiyan's been holding on to cards almost this entire game with some of these, I would definitely expect to see some Whirlwind action in that. And speaking of Whirlwind action,
yeah, he could play all that. No, he wouldn't be able to play Execute in that case, which is actually quite a big deal. But he could play the Ravaging Ghoul plus the Patron plus Whirlwind and Execute, and it looks like that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, looking like he's just right back on that Ragnaros plan. I mean, Phonetap didn't have the strongest reload to it. He's still got 2 Whirlwinds left to handle the Violet Teacher and the Ragnaros shots. I mean, Phonetap just used a backstab and then sapped Ragnaros.
Yeah. Ooh. But we are getting pretty close to Phonetap being able to close out this game. He's got 7 damage on board and 13 in hand with Dagger Deadly, Leroy Coldblood. So he's actually only 2 damage off winning. So he's still in a reasonable spot here. It's just, can he get through all this? And I think it's going to be pretty easy for him with with the second sap.
I imagine he's really thinking about Grom Inner Rage, like almost quite literally those cards, and trying to figure out a way he can stay alive through that. Now, the answer to that would have been Gadgetzan Coldblood hope to draw an Earthring Farseer, but that's only if Earthring Farseer is even in his build.
Yeah, it normally is, but I've seen a lot of players getting greedy with Rogue, feeling like, Earthring Farseer, a lot of times that 3 health doesn't make a difference. I'm better off putting a card that might have more impact in more situations, like additional cycle with Shiv, or even like that second deadly poison that players were cutting. So,
yeah, this is just going to load up the board here. This is going to meet another Whirlwind from Saiyan. But I think the damage might have just been too much at this point. I mean, yeah. I think Jutstsaiyan's on inner rage to win.
And we'll see if he can pick it up. No.
How does he recover this now? He doesn't have any armor smiths left. Shield block usually doesn't appear in this deck.
In order for him to survive, he needs to fit in an armor up and clear the board, which seems impossible. Even if he picks up Acolytes and Whirlwinds and picks up an Execute, he would still leave either the Violet Teacher or the Azure Drake on the board. So I don't think there's a way out here for Saiyan. I think he had an out there with Inner Rage for the Grom Hellscream, but just wasn't able to pick it up. And that Grim Patron, that Whirlwind, sitting dead in his hand nearly the entire game.
Yeah, a little bit surprised by it. He's going to try his best. But again, unless there's a miracle tucked in this that top card there. Does find an Execute. But again, it's not enough. Leroy Cold Blood in Hand is going to close this.
Yeah. He will be able to fit in an armor up here, but there'll still be plenty of damage available. 16 total to be exact, and Justsaiyan has to be thinking that, you know what, I did my best, but my best wasn't good enough.
TJ's been working on his counting here. It is 18 with that SS7 agent.
Oh yeah, 18. Well, just with the natural damage, just with the 0 BM damage, it's 16. Thank you very much.
Yep. -2 for Justsaiyan. Drops the first game. And this is Conquest, so Phonetap going to have his rogue deck tucked away, but always happy to get that first win on the board. You know, it's always like the biggest step to me in a tournament is like game 1 of match 1 when you just set foot in the tournament. You know, if you haven't been warming up, you might feel a little bit cold, kind of the nerves, and at this point you get to calm everything down. And I've been to Justsaiyan C. I don't think he's really affected by emotions. He seems like a very even keel kind of guy. Yeah. But over for myself, when I lose game 1, I'm like, crikey, mate, is this really how I'm going to lose this tournament? Is just I'm going to go 0-3 here, and like I get down in the dumps right away.
Let's pack it up, boys. Time to head home. Lost the first game. That's how it feels. But Phonetap, I don't know if he's feeling that great about that. He looked pretty shaken up by that one turn where he floated 3 mana after trying to get that Edward Van Cleef out. Of course, still, it's when you get into position as a rogue where you have gadgets and coin plus conceal on turn 6, you got to be feeling pretty good about your chances, regardless.
You got to do the gadgets and dance when that happens.
Yeah, so feeling pretty happy. He's got Shaman and Warlock remaining. Knowing Phonetap, it's probably Aggro Shaman and Zoo Warlock. He tends to, like you said earlier, he plays what he's comfortable with. And Aggro Shaman is a deck that Phonetap's been playing forever. Aggro Shaman is a deck that Phonetap has been playing since before Aggro Shaman was even a big deal. If you think back to the tournament, his breakout tournament performance, the Legendary Series Season 2 finals, which he qualified for and actually won. He was playing Shaman as